9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we should be live. Let's see if we've got the...
Alright, we got it.
Sweet. Alright, you can put that link up, and hey everybody, if anybody's in here yet, it doesn't look like it, but
Come on, get...
Calon, if you're going to mutter at your computer, you should probably mute yourself.
No, all of this is essentially important to the defeat of atheism as we know it. Okay? I swear it is. It's all critically important. Where was that damn thing?
I didn't think that our object was to defeat atheism. Like, most of us don't give a fuck.
It's to annihilate it from the face of the planet, like the scourge that it is. Along with Christianity and all those, all those other wishy-washy.
I'm too lazy for that.
God damn it, Cingeto.
I mean, last I checked, I don't really give a fuck if somebody's an atheist so long as they don't try to convert me. So, like, I think we should try to eliminate fundamentalism from the planet. That seems to be a better idea, because fundamentalism could be anything.
Yeah.
Just eliminate all ideology, including atheism.
Yeah, but the problem is that we subscribe to an ideology. Most of us subscribe to the ideology of live and let live.
Terrible ideology. Need to fix that.
It really is. Vikings don't need that ideology, I might add. We could just raid and plunder.
Do you have the link up on Twitter?
Just about.
We've only got 2 people in the chat at the moment, apparently.
You're talking about.
And one of them's me.
Alright, the link's up. We're totally not enacting a secret plan to destroy the atheist community right now. Not at all.
So the good news is, by the way, I was able to get this to go live with an actual proper title and description. The bad news is I wasn't able to pre-schedule it and do that, so I'm still going to have to mess around with it.
Yeah, we're going to have to science it. Freaking science.
Yeah, I'm basically going to have to go to our dummy channel and try and do some experimentation. But the point is that I did actually get the dang thing going close enough to on time for, science this particular time around. So, yay. Hello, people in the chat.
Oh, we had people in the chat?
Yep, we have...
I feel so fancy.
A whole 2 people.
We have, like, a singular person in the chat.
Oh, a singular person.
That person's not Cingeto?
We've got 2 people in the chat. We have somebody, Critical Cripple, and we have Kitsune Cavalier.
Oh. Why, hello, you two. Welcome to our little humble channel, where right now we're...
So, basically, today's stream is kind of like a Q&A with the chat, combined with a little bit of discussion of our recent rebrand.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we're going to talk about how we ultimately plan to take over the entire community and subjugate everyone to our will. Sounds logical, right?
Definitely. That's why we rebranded, to get across that goal.
Exactly.
See, Styx and Stonehenge is actually a code word for how we're going to break your bones if you don't submit to them.
You know, you've got to be very careful about cracking jokes, because we're kind of on the radar now after that debate, and there were a number of people who would be more than happy to clip that and pull it out of context.
Oh, if they clip that. If they want to fight? No, I'm kidding.
I laughed at the end of it, so it's kind of obvious I'm being sarcastic. But hey.
But they can clip it before the laugh.
Good point.
I mean, if they wanted to be extreme, they could technically clip anything and make us say anything, like, ever, so...
So, Calon, you wanted to start off by talking about the reasons why we ended up rebranding and sort of the ethos behind the new channel and kind of what we're doing with our future content, like the content schedule we're going to be setting up.
Right, so I decided, after looking at the title, PolyOlogy, that polytheism, I mean, it's a great proposition. I believe it. everyone here believes it. But to add on to its logical structure, we will get boring after a while, which we still plan to do, I might add. I have logical arguments in the works right now that eventually will come onto the channel for discussion. But we kind of want to expand our horizon. We're doing a lot of pagan stuff and multi-traditionalist stuff. I have some guests that are lined up currently that will be coming on. Some very fun guests, I might add.
We've also been doing a lot of debates both with atheists and Christians, and we've been talking about in the past we've talked about everything from politics to the kinds of arguments that you deal with on Twitter to, a number of different topics. Like, you also did a collab recently with Cirrus regarding transgender things.
Yeah.
So, we're more than just the, study of polytheism. We're kind of trying to espouse, at the very least from the five of us, polytheist commentary on a number of things.
Well, more so pagan commentary, I would say. Because polytheists, a Hindu or a Taoist can also do that.
Well, Taoists are not polytheist because they don't believe in gods at all.
Some are. There's some traditional strains of Taoism which still
and there are some Hindu strains also that are atheists, so you can't really say that either.
Hindu atheism is a little bit different, especially the intellectual forms of it. But
we can get into that in a future video.
Great future debate. So let's continue back on our old subject.
No, shut up, Cingeto. We're going to debate this right now with you right here.
How to moderate. Okay. Well, let's get back.
No, you're not moderating. You're being attacked.
Oh, yay.
I'll moderate then.
Yeah, Via can moderate, and Via will take my side on everything because Via's a good girl, unlike Cingeto with his cisness.
Ocean points out that Taoists were originally polytheist, and many still are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Wait, Ocean's here? Hi, Ocean.
So, in terms of the rebrand, basically, we felt that the original name PolyOlogy didn't quite fit with everything that we were doing, and so we kind of wanted to expand out to a name that sort of reflected the diversity of opinion and also gave us room to do some of the other kinds of content we wanted to do beyond just the educational stuff.
Yeah, so we are, so right now, currently, I have some interviews lined up with some Comitics and some other heathens. And so the plan is basically just to be a pretty chill channel, but a very informative channel. We'll also be going into things like animism versus other forms of polytheism and all that stuff.
I'm working on a practical series about Hellenic polytheist ritual structure for anybody who's interested in the way that the practices of my particular branch of polytheism works. Being a Hellenic Reconstructionist, there are a number of different theological systems, so I'm not going to be covering that stuff yet, but I will be covering a lot of the ritual structure, the way that things like, say, miasma and purification works, because that's kind of central to the beginning of any ritual, the way that prayer structures and such worked both in antiquity and the way that a lot of modern prayers are constructed, offerings, reciprocity, all kinds of things from a Hellenist worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some goodies packed up too. I got a few videos. I'm gonna make a video first off on the daily, and I'm going to make several a month beforehand on the holidays that are coming up. So just wait till you get your introduction to that.
And also, Cingeto being a bit overloaded with school and such, it's taking a little while to get the art done, but we are bringing back Mythological Mondays. One of the first that's going to be coming out is going to be a story from one of Plato's books regarding humans and the origins of the concepts of soulmates, and also the theological justification from that particular era for LGBTQ folks, because there actually is one in Greek mythology, and I found that extremely interesting.
Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, you're also going to get the Norse creation story from me, because that's been in the works for like ever.
So there's also been some stuff going on with our Twitter account, and I figure that you said that you kind of wanted to go into that a little bit.
Yes, our Twitter got compromised, and some hackers unfortunately took over the old PolyOlogy Twitter, so that Twitter no longer represents us. So instead, we have the new Styx and Stonehenge Twitter account. Which, if Cingeto could be nice for once and link that in the chat, that would be great.
Yes, unfortunately, I wasn't able to grab that link for the description of the video, so the link in the description is the old PolyOlogy Twitter. I will get that fixed as soon as somebody sends me the link to the new one.
Oh, I'll send it to you right now.
So animism, Witchy Poo, is the belief that all things have a soul.
Or most things.
Or most things.
They're different. There are different classes of animism. Like if we go into Shintoism, for example, they have different categories for things that they apply spirit to, which still pretty much encompasses all things.
Like it's not full on panpsychism, but it's still it's believing
close.
that lots of things have souls.
Well, and there's various forms of it. Like, there's some that believe that the entire universe is sentient and that all things, like all atoms, effectively are part of a universal consciousness. There's some variations that believe that only natural things have a soul. And then there's some variations that believe that nearly everything, including some manufactured things, have souls on the grounds of the materials that they are made of being natural.
Mm-hmm. And then there are others in which part of your essence goes into that material and makes it alive. That's always a fun take.
Well, yeah, and some, there's actually some forms of Wiccan magic that incorporate that idea. The idea, for example, that if you hand dip a candle while thinking about the intention for a spell, that will infuse the essence of that intention into the candle.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. By the way, hi, Triatail.
Oh, hi, Tria.
Who the heck is making all those noises in the background?
I have no idea.
It's like bells.
I mean, you and Calon are the only ones that were unmuted.
It's probably Calon then.
It was Aliakai.
It's probably Calon then, because there isn't a bell in my house.
Sounded like something going in a glass cup to me.
Anyhow. So, yeah. We have so many exciting series coming up on animism. Also, I'm thinking about maybe doing some translations of the sagas. My Old Norse is coming along rather well, but that might be in a little bit. Because I don't like reading from English translations, personally. That's just the thing.
Well, I mean, a number of us like learning the original languages that our religions are based on in order to either pray in that language or at the very least read some of the original texts.
Yeah, there's also some, the way, I could also going into various things like, I know the Hindus have mantra, and for the Norse we have Galdur, which is not exactly mantra, but it's like a magical meter that they employed, which will be fun to go into. That and runic magic. That's another one I plan to do once I straighten out a little bit of my theology on that, because it's a little disconnected at the moment.
Yeah, at some point I'm thinking about trying to work on a script to talk about the is magic hubris debate that goes on in the Hellenist community, which is sure to make me enemies on both sides because my position is you do you, boo.
I just don't understand how that's even a debate.
It's a debate because, well, from a Hellenist perspective, it's a debate because there's a number of different references to the idea of magic potentially being hubristic, because of the idea that, okay, it is definitely you, Calon.
Huh?
There is some kind of dinging going on in the background of your everything, and I don't know what it is, but it is really loud.
Sounds like one of those bells from the the hotels that you ring to get the people its attention.
All right, fine. I put my old Wiccan chalice away.
I knew it was a cup.
So, I'm thinking about doing a video on it. I don't want to get too deep into the debate. The big thing that tends to be the arguing factor is that magic, according to Hellenists, is an attempt to command the gods. It's not actually supplication, the way that a lot of people, call it that. And again, this is the argument on that side. This is not the position that I hold. But the idea is that anything other than offering and prayer is an attempt to command the gods or spirits, which is hubristic from a human standpoint.
Well, I'm really hubristic then. So yeah. Oh, also, Platonism. You're doing a series on that, aren't you, Aliakai?
Oh, gods. You are trying to get me to do a series on Platonism, but I don't feel like I'm enough of an expert on it to be able to talk on it, mostly because, A, I don't particularly believe that subset of Hellenic theology, and B, because I don't believe in it, I'm not sure how fairly I could represent it.
I mean, it's illogical, isn't it? Like, they hold the gods are beyond logic.
Well, yeah, one of the first things, posited is that the gods are beyond logic. However, if we could get Claytonus potentially to collaborate with us at some time, if we could talk to him, he might be willing to help us out, because he's written some fantastic articles on it.
Yeah, that would be good. And the whole, relationship first. It's this weird, it's like this really weird take that you don't have relationships with the gods, but the gods are, you only have relations. What was it?
So, Claytonus actually disagrees with this, but a number of Neoplatonists believe that you can't have a relationship with the gods. You can only have relations with them, because the gods are unaffected by humans. So, therefore, if you praise and worship the gods, it puts you in communion with them, and they can turn their gaze upon you, but because they are unmoved by you, and the justification given in Platonism is that anything that can rejoice can also weep, and the gods are incapable of both. Therefore, it means that effectively humans worship the gods to get closer to them because it benefits us. The gods are unmoved by us.
Why not just go full Brahmin there and say that, every human has a spark of divine? Never mind. That to me just seems like a really weird theology to hold.
Yeah, again, he states that it is about a relationship with the gods, but not in the classical sense of you are interacting directly with them. It's more that your purification of yourself allows you to then perceive them.
To perceive that, so the gods aren't turning their gaze. The gods are moving by turning their gaze on you, but it's confusing.
It is. This is why I don't feel confident enough to try to explain it, because attempting to explain it breaks my brain as hard as it breaks yours.
It's just okay. We'll assume they know what they're talking about. But yeah, I'm also studying a little bit of Hindu theology because, well, I'm currently taking a religious studies course in Asian religions, and Hinduism happened to be one that is actually very interesting, especially the idea of Brahman and Hindu polytheism and whatnot, and as well as probably looking into doing some comparative mythology stuff, because, as it turns out, Norse mythology and Hindu mythology share an odd number of coincidences with each other, such as a giant dying and creating the universe. In Norse mythos, it's called Umir. In Hindu mythology, it's Purusha.
Hello, Spatial Anarchy. So in terms of today's stream, because most of our discussion was just sort of about the rebrand and about what our future stuff is going to be, I know that some of you may have seen the debate that I did over on Modern Day Debate, and I know that some of you might have questions, so I wanted to open up the floor to any sort of chat questions you guys would like to ask us. Because we haven't done just like a Q&A in quite some time, so I figured it might be fun to let you guys pose some questions to us if you want to hear various perspectives. Right now, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, I am a Hellenist. Calon is a heathen who also practices Sumerian Reconstructionism. Cingeto practices, from what I understand, Celtic Reconstructionism, and Via is an eclectic pagan.
Now, one thing I have to correct you on there, it's Cingeto the Unwashed, because he doesn't want to bathe.
Actually, religiously not. I'm supposed to bathe religiously, so that wouldn't make sense. But
That's the whole point, Cingeto.
I know that's the joke. I could do a series on druidic bathing.
Exactly.
So,
We might have to censor it though.
Good point.
I mean, like dongs flying in the wind, man.
Well, you said it.
In the
Hopefully
wind.
that doesn't.
Demonetized.
No, we're
That's it.
only going to censor out Cingeto's face.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's perfect.
So,
Actually, we're only going to censor out Cingeto's eyes because the eyes are the window into the soul.
So, Spatial
Yeah, I can see
Anarchy,
that.
right at the beginning of the stream, we addressed it a little bit. So, we felt that PolyOlogy as a name didn't quite reflect the breadth of things that we were doing with the channel. PolyOlogy effectively means the study of many or the study of polytheism, but we've done a number of different collaboratives all over the place, from everything from transgender issues to general political stuff to like modern day commentary on current events a little bit. We've talked about like multi-traditionalism. So given how broad our channel's scope is, we kind of wanted to change the name to reflect that.
And
And
so
with the
now
name
we're...
change,
Sorry, Cingeto.
I was going to say, and with the name change came our art change, so you'll also notice different our new logo too.
Eventually. Well, you'll notice the new logo, but eventually we'll get the new borders up once Google decides to get its trash together.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
we tried to put the new banner up, but it is being grumpy with us. Hello, Mark. But yeah, that was the big thing. The other thing was our PolyOlogy Twitter account actually got hacked, so we had to swap out our Twitter account, and we figured that that was probably a good time to do the rebrand we'd been planning anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mark,
Exactly.
if you hadn't tuned in earlier, we actually just opened up to questions and answers from the chat, so if anybody wants to ask us anything, Calon, you tap that thing one more time, I swear.
Huh? What thing?
We keep hearing this dinging in the background, and like somebody in the chat said it was bugging them too.
All right. I'll move it even further away.
So if anybody has questions that you'd like for any one of us, you are totally welcome to ask. This is basically a Q&A and just a quick discussion of like where the channel's going from here on out. Well, yep, that's Spatial Anarchy. That's basically what happened. Was we decided after we got hacked to go forward with a rebrand that we'd been planning for a couple of months anyway, and we figured that it was just an auspicious time to do so.
The god spoke to us, basically.
By the way, we are going to be getting a mirror up soon, hopefully, but if any of you didn't get a chance to watch it, I actually went up on Modern Day Debates with Suris and Sygart and John Gashala, and debated morality and the existence of the gods and a number of other things.
Yeah, she debated a bunch of atheists.
I mean, at the very least, two of them were closer. At the very least, one of them, other than Suris, was an atheist. Because again,
Well, no,
he
they were all
openly
atheists
admitted
because
he
they're
didn't
monoteists.
understand. He openly admitted he didn't understand the Trinity. So how can you believe in something you don't get?
Exactly, he's an atheist.
Hello, Tony. If you're curious, by the way, Tony, if you've ever wanted to ask us something, we're doing a Q&A at the moment, so all four of us are happy to answer any question. And we've got Wolf in the chat, too. Wolf isn't feeling too well, otherwise he'd be here. I'll let him choose whether he wants to share why he's not feeling too well or not.
It's the atheists, really.
Mhm.
It's totally them. And the
We
Christians.
have our audience, Calon.
Honestly, like, you've had a bunch of atheo-fundies coming after you specifically.
Oh yeah, that's right. I guess I could talk a little bit about that. So I post an argument that's not even a deductive argument, it's an abductive argument, which is completely different. It's not actually meant to establish 100% certainty. It's simply to say, this is something plausible that could be the case. therefore it is rationally justified. But every atheofundy on Twitter decided, no, that means you're trying to prove the gods. Really? I can post arguments to try to prove the gods. You'll find them all unsound. But this one is like so basic to where basically you have either two options. One, you can disagree that reality is observable. Or two, you can find some way to where the gods make reality and it's unobservable to us right now.
So, Tony, the beginning was literally just us talking about future content on the channel and what our rebrand's going on. The question and answer session is completely open for you guys to ask us pretty much anything, so long as it's something we're allowed to discuss on YouTube. Like, this is basically just sort of a freeform Q&A. Anybody who's new or has a question for us and has never gotten to ask before, like, you guys are totally welcome to ask us anything, pretty much, as long as YouTube will let us talk about it.
Because that's the other thing, we saw a huge uptick in subscribers recently between the collab that I did with Cirrus and Aliakai's famous.
You mispronounced my name again. God damn it, Calon, you know better.
I do, but I just have to drive you insane. You know this.
Ugh. It's not hard, dang it. You'll correct me on my pronunciation of Greek freaking names.
I'll correct you on your pronunciation of everything.
So, any questions? I don't see any in the chat yet.
My cat is trying to lay on my keyboard, so...
Well, the cat deserves to lay on your keyboard then. Just disconnect your keyboard.
So, does anybody have any burning question you've ever wanted to ask us? Because, like, the chat's completely open. As long as YouTube will let us talk about it, then we're totally open to talk about it.
Yes.
And if any of you that are currently in the chat saw my debate yesterday and you've got any questions for me about that, I'm perfectly happy answering those, too. Oh, we've got one for Calon.
Oh, no.
It's not in the chat yet.
It's gonna be a long one.
It's going to be a long one. I'm going to have to go on a diatribe. Alright, what is it? Do the damage. Why do atheists eat babies? That's a good question. I don't know why they have a baby eating fetish. I prefer to sacrifice them myself.
Triatel asks, do you do anything offline as far as awareness goes?
Public practice. Pretty much. A little bit. I carry a statue around now. As well as, do not really hide the fact that I'm a polytheist. So, there's that.
Yeah.
I just
as for
fucking wear a
organizing-
Mjolnir pendant around.
Yeah, that I do too.
Also talk about being like a filthy pagan and worshipping the gods of old.
That's always a fun topic, especially around Christians.
I'll wear my stuff, like my jewelry, etc., around. And I usually even do this at public restaurants. Put grass, usually in a bag, so I don't have to give the people a hard time to clean up under my food.
What is the structure of Sumeria like compared to, say, the North? Sumeria's... So, like, it's very different because, like, there were a ton of gods in ancient Sumeria. Because basically the way they establish that the gods exist is that they looked at their civilization and they went, hey, everything we do is directed. So therefore everything in the natural world must also be directed by some unseen force. We're going to go ahead and call that force God. Or this god or that god. So like Inna, Enki, and whatnot. So generally the other difficult thing with Sumeria is that we're talking an incredibly long period of time of like over 1,000 years.
You get that same problem with Greece.
Yeah, that too. So the particular pantheon, the structure that I go with is that I view An as the head of the Sumerian pantheon. An he's like an authoritative deity. That's the best way I can describe him. I also go with and when I do practice my Sumerian practice, I consider Nana to be the prime mover, though she is pretty far removed from the world, as far as I can tell. There isn't that much honor. But
So
you also have a period of time where you have Enlil, taking the head of the Sumerian pantheon. And it also depends on which city-state of Sumer you're looking at. So it's a lot. I don't want to say it's more like decentralized. It's more like depending on which sort of city-state of Sumeria and which time period you're looking at, if that answers your question.
So we have a general question for the group. Witchypoo asks, is there a way I can help extremists to understand polytheism and magic in a friendly and non-combatant way? I want to gently help them to see us as people and that there's nothing to fear. So it depends. I'm going to start off by saying it depends on the kind of extremist you're talking about. If you're talking about atheofundies, you're going to have a much harder time than you are with some other types of extremism, just because the conversion factor that happens with atheofundies and also with extremist Christians can be a major barrier to having a discussion.
Yeah, this is something I can also speak about given my background with extremism. So there are several factors that play into extremism. One of those, and probably the most important one, being environment. You basically have to have the patience of a saint in order to reach through to them. And even then, it's not guaranteed that it's going to work, because the environment that they're in could give them a reason to stay as they are. So a lot of what goes into your identity is also social status. And if, say, an atheofundy or a Christofundy feels that their status could be threatened by changing their beliefs, they are going to tend to stay on the course that gets them the most prestige within their local environment, or milieu, as we call it.
Well, and we talked a little bit in the past.
Basically, the way you would change them is you would have to have an extreme amount of patience, and you basically would have to have extended periods of contact with them. And then gradually they may start to shift over. But it's not a sure process.
Also, for what it's worth, Witchypoo, we do actually see the chat in real time. The chat that shows up on the screen for you guys to see on the right-hand side, that isn't the chat that I'm looking at. I'm actually looking at the live chat on the website. So it's got a slight stream delay because there is one in OBS, but I'm actually seeing what you guys are posting real time. Coming back to the question of fundamentalism, with atheists in particular, and again, I'm specifically referring to what we would call fundamentalist atheists, which for the folks in the room who haven't heard us rant on this before, they tend to be the types of atheists that will call religious beliefs automatically irrational and often or delusional. There's a lot of mental health language that gets used by this particular group of people. They also have a tendency to be the type that will, then proceed to say that religious belief automatically leads to other types of irrational beliefs and is therefore automatically harmful. And
a slippery slope fallacy. Mm-hmm.
Basically. When you look at fundamentalist Christians, a lot of them will relabel our religious experiences, which for the majority of us are the justification for our beliefs, as experiences with demons.
Also, I'll be the first to admit that I've had experience with demons. But demons are a much different creature in Sumerian religion.
Also, fundamentalist atheists are the type that will try to actively deconvert you out of your religion.
Yeah, we call those colonialist atheists.
Also, that particular type of person may also accuse you of attempting to proselytize just by explaining what you believe. We've gotten a bunch of that.
Yeah.
I just got a bunch of that on my Twitter, actually.
Tony, she said that saying that irrational beliefs in religion automatically lead to irrational beliefs elsewhere in life is the slippery slope fallacy.
It is. Mm-hmm. It's the same as saying, oh, you do marijuana. Next step, it's hard cocaine for you. That's the kind of fallacy we're talking about.
Yeah.
Or oh shit, they're gay. They're marrying gays now. Now they're gonna fucking start marrying children.
Exactly.
Or they're going to, advocate for, hebephilia. Ugh.
Bestiality.
Bestiality's the other one. In terms of talking to atheists in particular, one of the first things that a lot of polytheists find, if they are somebody who is just ill-informed as opposed to somebody who is semi-bigoted, and I'm going to use that term loosely here a little bit, They making it clear that you don't care if they believe in your gods or not, just that you have a rational reason to believe in them yourself, is a really good way to start out that conversation. It's non-threatening. Calon, you have some hardcore background noise going on. Like you've got yipping dog or something.
Probably the dog downstairs.
You might want to mute when you're not talking because it's loud. So that's a really good way to start that conversation, is to talk about that. A lot of the time, breaking down the idea that we trust our senses for the majority of things, but talking about the limitations of said senses, talking about, for example, the fact that you can't perceive ultraviolet and infrared light beyond just feeling the heat of it, in the case of infrared, and talking about how your brain can't fully tell the difference between a narrative on a screen, say on television, or, and like an actual experience in terms of recalling your memory, then sort of moving into any divine experiences you've had can be a very good way to open up that conversation, but making it clear throughout that you're not trying to use your experience to force them to believe, that you ultimately don't care if they believe in your gods or not, just that you don't want them to attempt to convert you out of believing in them.
And here's the fun fact, by the way. We're more likely, a lot of the times, to try to discourage you from following our paths. Because you do have to do a lot of work.
Yeah, there's a number
Paganism is a religion with homework.
Oh yeah, there's a number of people that have told me they want to get into quote unquote worshiping the Greek gods, or they want to get into working with the Greek gods, and I'm like, well, if you're talking about working with the Greek gods, then we're already on the wrong foot.
How does one work with the Greek gods? What?
That's the thing. Like that tends to be a Wiccan or an eclectic phrasing, like working with the gods as opposed to worshiping them.
Yeah, that's just weird. Okay. But yeah.
And I'm not mocking Wiccans or neo-pagans, mind you, at all by talking about that. It's just a particular phrasing that doesn't necessarily work within Hellenism.
Yeah, no, I get that. And hopefully our audience does too. But yeah, when it comes to talking with atheists, that is one way I find. The other way is when they just turn toxic. At that point, it's game over for me now, pretty much, because I'm just tired of it.
Well, and another big thing is if you specifically are interested in getting into Reconstructionism, scholarly articles and books and things are your best friend.
They're not only your best friend, but they're a requirement. And expect for a lot of the resources to be really hard to get as well. It's easier to get, it's easier to get some Semitic stuff, because there's a lot of stuff out there on biblical literature, and you can use the Bible to adduce some of the traits of the Semitic gods.
Easy to find information on can be a double-edged sword, though. There's a shit ton of stuff out there about the Greek gods, too, but over half of it is trash.
Yeah, no, that's what I was about to get into. But if you start going and looking into, heathenry, the first thing you're probably you'll encounter is what others call prosoptru, which is the idea that these big proud Vikings who didn't give a damn what you said and all had horned helmets or stuff like that, which is all trash, by the way. The Vikings had the thinnest skin of probably anyone that you could imagine. Huh?
The Gauls had horned helmets. It wasn't the Vikings.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing. The Vikings never had horned helmets.
Also, welcome to the chat, LGBT Rex. If this is your first time here, we're actually doing a Q&A where anyone in the chat can ask us pretty much anything that YouTube will let us talk about. So if you've got a burning question that you'd like any one of us or all of us to answer, this is your time to ask. So since we're mostly just talking about the rebrand and talking about, various subjects the community is interested in.
And if y'all do need resources for specifically Celtic stuff or Indo-European stuff, come to the Discord. I have stuff for you.
I also have a suggested reading list for anybody who's interested in Hellenism. I put a number of scholarly sources together alongside modern-day prayer books and hymn books, and a couple of books on ritual structure. So if anybody wants that list, I've got a PDF.
And I've got the Sumerian and a good bit of the heathen stuff. So the heathen stuff is still a work in progress more, because that's harder stuff to get a hold of, but still more than the Celts have.
Way more lucky, but
Although, you want to know who I really feel sorry for the most?
who? Oh, probably the Carthaginians.
No, the Slavs. The
Oh,
Slavs
good
got hit
point.
the worst.
But they have
Yeah.
little bits of folklore, unlike the Gauls.
They have little bits, but it's tiny, and a lot of it is irrelevant. And they have to contend with the Book of Vedesh, which is a forgery, which is a proven forgery. But Rold Novetti,
You're not wrong.
but Rold Novetti has taken that up.
So, for anybody in the chat, we've got 16 people currently hanging out. If you guys have a question for one or all of us or any of us, feel free to post it in the live chat. We're doing a Q&A for anything that YouTube's going to let us talk about. So if you've got any sort of questions about polytheism, or you want to comment on the debate last night or anything else, like, you are perfectly welcome to ask pretty much anything.
Even Aliakai's birthday and her address. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, you can ask.
She actually lives in Athens, but guys, just so you know, I totally just doxed her. She lives in Athens, Greece.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just like Cingeto over here. He lives in, we don't know where he lives, actually. He lives out somewhere in the woods.
I live on the one
He
of those.
doesn't bathe either.
I live on one of those secret continents on the flat Earth model beyond the first ice wall. I live on one of those continents, actually.
So we have a question for Calon. What would you say the difference is between heathenry and paganism as a whole?
Well, heathenry is a form of paganism, so I don't know exactly what you mean there. Do you? So, like, there are different. So there are different, like, philosophies within heathenry. Like, heathenry is animistic, while with, say, a paganism like Sumerian, you have the idea of the May, which pretty much gets into an earlier form of Plato's forms.
Yeah, like, I'd say paganism as a whole is a very broad umbrella that encompasses a number of different religions, so if you're talking about what makes heathenry unique, you'd have to start to get into various theological systems. So I think, Spatial Anarchy, if you could refine your question a little bit more so that we have the ability to answer it a little bit better, I think that might be more helpful. So...
I think Spatial Anarchy was just asking, like, does heathenry also refer to just general pagans? Or,
no, heathenry refers specifically to Germanic pagans nowadays. The actual term heathen was originally used in Old English to just refer to anyone who wasn't Christian. So yeah, that's why atheists will, annoyingly, I might add, this is something that annoys me, they will refer to themselves as heathens, even though they don't worship the Germanic gods. But yes, aside from that, you can then break down heathenry into continental Germanic, Anglo-Saxon, Frankish, even apparently.
Frankish is continental.
Yeah, but a subset of continental.
Yeah.
And even Norse. So yeah, those are your branches for heathenry.
Well, and, sometimes even Wiccans will refer to themselves as heathens, though more often I've noticed that they tend to be a bit more sensitive. They'll usually only do so if the pantheon that they work with in their Wiccan practice is the Norse one.
Yeah.
Guys, you just turned off your cameras, so now everything's white again.
Why? It's such a disgusting color. I'm kidding. By the way,
that's why you use Twitter dark mode.
It is. White mode on Twitter is a sin.
Yeah, it is.
Say it now.
It hurts so hard. It hurts your eyes.
I will say that is one of the big problems with Zoom, is that, like, it doesn't let you use your avatars unless at least one person has a camera on.
Like, the amount of miasma now is just extreme.
Try Discord white mode.
Okay, so you see, the problem here with miasma is you're referring to miasma that is generated by an action, which, short of murder, I don't think can happen. But if y'all have questions about freaking miasma, like, I'm happy to try my best to answer them. I actually kind of wanted to make a comment earlier, but my ADHD like fucked off with it, so I'm back. It's back. When Calon was talking about the difficulty with getting a hold of some of the scholarly sources, there is a book on miasma and purification that was a university press only book that is no longer in print that I desperately want to get. It's over $100.
It's not that much.
So Spatial Anarchy says, okay, to refine this then, I'd ask what you might say makes heathenry different from Christianity, but I mean that in terms of historical texts and overall worship. Well, I'm actually going to point something out to begin with there, before Calon answers. Christians don't have a praxis. Like most Reconstructionist religions are orthopraxic in nature, meaning there is some kind of praxis that is set up for worship. I have yet to have met a Christian who can answer me what they do on a daily basis as their worship, if that makes sense. Like singing hymns and such in church would be an example of that, or going on a mission trip, but the vast majority of Christians I've met have not done that. Go on, Calon.
As for the differences between, say, heathenry and Christianity, well, aside from the polytheism, we don't hold that, like,
historical texts
we don't
and
hold
overall
any
worship, so they're talking praxis.
Historical texts. So, in terms of historical texts, we don't have as much for heathenry as we do for Christianity, by far.
Well, you're also not an orthodoxic faith either. There's not a specific thing you have to believe in terms of theology.
Yeah, I'm about to get to that. Yeah, no, I'm about to get to that. We have a lot less than the Christians do. We also don't have to adhere to it as strictly as the Christians do. I would say that there are no mythic literalist heathens, but unfortunately I can't say that because I know as soon as I say that, I'm going to come across one stupid moron who will prove me wrong.
Wait, so you're telling me you don't believe the Earth is Ymir's body?
No, it is. It totally is. Not only is and the sky, by the way, the sky is made out of his brains, and the sea is actually his blood. True facts. But doesn't mean I ignore the text overall. So generally what I try to do is I try to reconstruct what I can and try to get at some sort of what the Norse believed in terms of creation story. So for example, I hold to panentheism when it comes to Ymir, meaning I believe that Odin killed Ymir, Ymir died, and his corpse is basically what became our universe.
So I wanted to say thank you to the Kitsune Cavalier for their compliment about last night's debate. Yeah, John Gashala from last night is extremely racist, on a number of counts. It's fairly easy to find.
He's a folkist.
He's not just a focus, he's a Zionist, a hardcore Zionist, and has on multiple videos advocated for Jewish terrorism and purging of non-Jewish folks from what he perceives to be the Holy Land. So
I want to get him and Chris in a room.
That was something where he said, from a Jewish perspective, we don't really care what you believe. I was like, that's not what you say on your channel, but okay. There was a lot of people kind of trying to avoid, I've noticed that most of us were trying to avoid getting into a fight early on, but as things went on, I started asking questions about a number of common positions that I knew that Jewish folks and Christian folks tend to take, and it ended up turning the end of the debate sort of into a argument, about morality and such. Especially given that Sai is a very interesting Christian, given that he doesn't believe in evolution, or he does believe in evolution, rather.
He doesn't believe in evolution.
No, he does believe in evolution, and most
He's
of them don't.
Most of them in this community don't, I should say. You should say.
Yeah, most of them that will come up for debates won't. So one of the things that I've noticed is that there aren't a heck of a lot of Christians who are more educated on theology that like to get into debates, or are more educated on science and theology that like to get into debates. You tend to get one or the other. You tend to get either a Christian that's very well versed in science but claims to not good at theology, kind of like Psy, or you
the only one who I could think is similar to both would be IP.
Yeah, Inspiring
He's
Philosophy.
pretty good at both.
Is pretty decent at both. But, like, you get people like S.J. Thomason, who is fairly educated in theology, but doesn't like getting into historical debates, and definitely denies science.
S.J. Thompson, theology, they don't.
I've seen her argue well enough.
Debatable. We'll have that debate right now, Cingeto.
So
just to me after I've done nothing today.
We have...
No, we're out for blood, and it's your blood, Cingeto. You're the freaking unwashed one here.
Kitsune Cavalier, if you want to watch one of his better debates, Cygart did one with Aaron Raw that I thought was very interesting. The first half of it is them agreeing a whole bunch on science, and then they start to get into the nitty-gritty of the Bible, and Aaron kind of gets into him. I will say Aaron says a few yikesy things about Greek mythology that are definitely not true. As far as, like, theological stuff and creation myths are concerned, but overall I thought that debate was a really good one, and it was one of the things I watched for my research. We actually have a question for all four of us from Spatial Anarchy. How do you think your own choice in religion affects your morality, or do you think it doesn't affect it at all?
Well, okay, that's kind of a lie. So, I will also sometimes take cultural aspects from the culture where that religion is practiced. So, for example, I adhere to the Utengarth dichotomy, which basically states I have a series of people to me that I care about and that I would consider Inengarth, inner yard to me. That implies that I have an ethical responsibility to maintain what is called friður, or frith with them, meaning peace. Everyone else, though, is Utengarth. That is to basically say, as far as I'm concerned, they're in the wilds from me.
As far as my ethics, I know that my faith actually got me to start looking into virtue ethics, because there's a lot of talk of virtue when you start talking about the afterlife and such in Hellenism, which some Hellenists don't hold to the afterlife existing. There's a lot of Neoplatonists that don't. But for me, it was actually reading Hellenist philosophy that sort of led me in part to my religion. It made me more okay with it, if that makes sense. I'm trying to find my words. The thing that led me to my religion ultimately was my experience with Athena, which at some point when we do a stream on personal experiences with deity, I'll talk about in more detail. I've talked about it a little bit in private channels before.
Athena.
But, look, I've heard Athena from modern Greek.
We don't do modern trash here. We do the ancient.
Well, I don't speak ancient Greek, so bug off, Calon.
Well, you're going to learn ancient Greek.
Someday. When I have time to, do something other than writing scripts and writing my novel. But yeah, like, Aristotelian virtue ethics and Stoicism have affected a lot about my personal philosophy, but I wouldn't say that those are specifically religious in nature, if that makes sense. I don't believe in divine command theory. I don't think the gods give us our philosophy or our ethics. I think that, to a certain degree, ethics are at least in part trial and error, but I think that there are some things that are definitely, quote, good, and some things that are definitely not.
Yeah, I'm much the same way with me. I see the gods as wise, but I don't see them as all good. In fact, Odin does some pretty screwed up stuff when you look at the sagas.
Thea, what about you?
My morality kind of informs my religion instead of the other way around, because I have a strong personal sense of morals, and if a particular religious group doesn't match up with that, then I'm not going to practice that religion.
What about you, Cingeto? No.
I adhere to Dedma, so my morals are generally informed by my religious beliefs.
Do you want to talk about your moral code a little bit?
I can give you the general list of values that were put together by Konatev of honor, loyal, hospitality, honesty, justice, and courage. And then Dedma gets a bit more complicated. The best analogy I can give to it is similar to Dharma from what I've read on it. But
okay.
it's
Interesting.
Proto-Indo-European from what I can remember reading based off of
Dharma.
the Dharma, and it more or less applies to your specific situation and what you're supposed to do in life, and considering
Basically your duty.
yes, your duty. It's similar to it's the best way to say it is your duty, and then how you're supposed to act within that duty. And I view morality and living as a sort of balance, and it's what keeps you in balance as you walk through your life. And I view, for me personally, this doesn't apply to everybody in my opinion, but because I have two separate types of morality as well. Considering my morality, personal morality for me, and then morality I expect others to uphold. And then when it comes to personal morality, I hold to my tradition, the traditions that I'm working on reconstructing or that I already know of, to be part of my moral duty to follow as well.
Okay, so does anybody else have any more questions? On the topic of morality as a whole, I think studying philosophy can do a lot for somebody trying to figure out their own personal moral systems, because not every theological system comes with a moral imperative attached to it.
Yeah, in fact, I know some heathens who are moral anti-realists. They don't believe morality exists.
I've met some Hellenists that believe that as well, but they're fairly few and far in between. Usually what Hellenists tend to get into is virtue ethics, like what constitutes virtue. A Stoic, an Aristotelian, a Epicurean, a hedonist, and a Neoplatonist will all have very different answers to that question.
Which Aliakai is totally a hedonist, trust me. Totally heathens. Like, pleasure, that's what it's all about for her.
Y'all are all getting all the questions. I haven't got any questions yet.
You don't deserve any, Cingeto.
I'm going to make a note that I have often quoted Epictetus in saying, "He who is enslaved to desire or aversion is a slave." Or he who is shackled to desire and
we're going to
aversion
strike that
is a
quote
slave.
from the record because we need to maintain your image as a hedonist.
That's what's going to get us all the
Exactly. And it'll allow us to start selling sex toys.
We should
with like the logo on it.
We need to get a sponsorship with Adam and Eve right away.
I mean, like,
Exactly.
Surus has the absolute best sponsorship, man. Like, of course, he would become the weird side of YouTube the moment he gets a freaking sponsorship. Apparently, Spatial Anarchy does have a question for you, Cingeto. You're not all by yourself. We just have to wait for them to type it.
Okay.
Damn it. What?
For anybody else who has questions, by the way, you don't have to wait until we're done talking. Oh, hello, Rilla. To post them, I'm getting to them in order, and I have a larger chat that I can see on my screen than what's available on the video screen for what's coming in through chat. So, like, you guys are welcome to type whatever questions you want, and I'll try my best to get to each of them. Spatial Anarchy asks Cingeto, what is your stance on the Morrigan and Celtic religion or culture, if that makes sense?
Okay, that's always a fun topic, and I've actually read a bunch of interesting stuff on this. That's a fun one to dive in.
Who worships the Morrigan?
Huh?
Try to leave your answer to 7 minutes or less, Cingeto.
Okay.
5 minutes or less.
7 hours or less.
7 minutes.
5 minutes, Cingeto. That's all you deserve.
But basically, okay, so there's actually I've actually been reading a fun thing, and I've been reworking on my theology a bit because I read about it. Basically, the Morrigan, some people hold the view that the Morrigan is a specifically Irish deity, but I'm actually a bit more flexible and more speculative because I like that kind of stuff, and think the Morrigan is likely, I know at least that her components, or the sisters that make her up, are found within Gaul. Not necessarily named, but
Cingeto, like, you can breathe. You don't have to talk like you're trying to get every single word out. Like, you don't have to get every word out on a single breath. Okay. Like, you can breathe and you can talk like a normal person.
Breathing is
Aliakai, no, I want to see him pass out.
But basically, I need to slow down or else no one's gonna understand me. But
pretty much.
You're talking, Cingeto. You're talking like that one kid in class who always writes way too much material for a speech, and then has to talk really fucking quickly to get through the whole thing in the time period.
No, you're talking like somebody you're talking like a YouTube video playing on 1.25 speed. Like, you can breathe, Cingeto. It's okay. You're allowed to let air pass into your lungs.
Thank you. I'm glad I have that permission now.
But basically, I'm overriding that. No,
You
I
only
want to
have
see him pass
permission
out.
from two of
There's
them.
an idea that Neto Suelta from the Gaulish iconography and such is the Morrigan, based off of some interesting iconography, such as the house on the pole and the beehive, probably corresponding to fairy mounds, which the Morrigan is also supposed to be the queen of, based off of other things I've read in comparative mythology. There's also a specific triad that got very popular in Gaul, especially around the 2nd century, called the Matrone. I talked about that in my debate with IP.
Matrone.
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 Basically, they're very popular, and they're a triad of women, or triad of mother goddesses, specifically associated with fate. And there's also another goddess named Cathabuda. Probably butchering that at the moment because it's always a tongue twister.
Cingeto, we're gonna have a long conversation after this about your pronunciation. This can't stand.
Okay. Afterwards, I have to spill all the beans.
Okay, no, you know what? We're gonna do it now. No, I'm kidding.
Calon is now dumping a teapot on your head
in
in public. Calon, come on, a little bit of professionalism. Just a quarter of an inch. That's all you need.
No.
There's also...
I'm gonna be a bitch then. No, I'm kidding.
Professionalism is fucking bourgeoisie bullshit.
It is, really.
Can I finish?
No.
That's all in sync. I'm sorry. I'm going to answer this question if it kills me, but...
It might.
It will kill you. I will make sure it kills you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Cingeto, we need your current coordinates for non-missile launch reasons.
For not. That's so oddly specific.
I got a bell here.
It's not going to be a missile. It's going to be just a fallen plane. But basically, they're Neto Suelta, Cathabuada, which means battle crow, which is pretty good connection to the Morrigan.
Cathabuada?
And then there's also and then there's the Matrone.
It feels like you need an entire video to yourself just to explain this concept. Like, this sounds like a script that you are now, because I publicly told you are now required to do it, you are now required to do it.
You need a whole video just to fucking describe anything in college.
I do. What was it? Oh yeah, and I was also going to compare Epona to Macha, which is also another sister of the Morrigan. Are you using Old Irish or New Irish, Calon? But
the superior Irish, Old Irish, of course. How dare you insinuate there's any other Irish can get out?
I don't even know what the fucking difference is.
All I'm hearing is bar, 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 bar.
That's all we hear from you, Aliakai. Greeks are the real barbarians here.
So basically, she could either be pan-Celtic or specifically Irish, depending on your interpretation. But that's so far what I think of the Morrigan. I'm still doing more research on her.
So we have another question for the group. What does mythology mean to y'all? For me, it informs the cultures and mindsets of people at the time and gives you just enough insight into the gods' personalities to work with them.
For me, it tells me stories of the gods. Some of them I see as a little more plausible in terms of etiology than others. But mainly it informs me of who the gods were. Well, not are, as in how the Norse perceived them, and yeah, basically their personalities and various traditions.
So for me, I went over this in the debate a little bit last night, but like, mythology to me it's basically personal gnosis frequently that has been experienced by so many people in a culture for so long that it becomes verified. If any of you guys remember our talks on personal gnosis and the various types of personal gnosis. So mythology, especially, and this is a particularly Hellenist POV to take, because any stories about the gods were considered to be divinely inspired, but most of them were not considered to be absolute truth in ancient Greece, in a lot, especially if you read the philosophers. A lot of the stories of the gods we get actually come from fictional works, such as like plays and novels and things of that nature. So when you look at Greek mythology, it quite literally was viewed as mythology to a certain degree. So to me, mythology tells me some things about the gods, much like what you said, but for the most part, it tells us more about the culture that those gods came from. I think the big thing it tells us is what the gods are interested in, like what their primary, I guess, focus would be. Zeus, Zephs, by the way, Calon, if you want ancient pronunciations, is Zephs.
Deus.
No, in ancient Greek, it is Zephs. I
need a citation.
I will give you a citation. But in ancient... Yeah, Deus is Latin, Calon.
No, it's Deus, not Deus.
It's Zephs. But, like, in... Like, Zephs or Zeus in ancient Greece, like, he could
Or
technically
Zeus.
grant any particular prayer, but if you ask him for help on, specific subjects, namely things that have to do with the weather, or things that have to do, say, if you're a Stoic, with, upholding your personal philosophy, he's more likely to answer those particular kinds of prayers because they're the things that interest him. Same with Athena when you're talking specifically about philosophy,
Athena.
or Hermes when you're talking specific...
Hermes.
Okay, Calon, I'm gonna mute you. I can. You are in my Zoom call.
Please.
No, mute Cingeto.
Calon has been muted for at least the duration of my answer.
I refuse to be muted.
So, anyhow, the answer to that is that the mythology for me tells me a lot more about what particular things the gods are more likely to, like, answer in terms of prayers and supplications and such. Via, what about you?
For me, it's pretty much a metaphorical lens to view, like, personality traits of the gods and seeing the stories that have sprung up around them and the symbology that kind of stands for them, and using that to, like, inform my personal practice and how I reach out to them.
All right, so Spatial Anarchy has just revealed themselves to most definitely be from Naka's channel. Priepos has officially taken over this live stream.
Damn it. Ban him. No, I'm kidding.
Cingeto, now that we know that Priepos is the one true god, what is your answer to this question?
Thank you. But okay, quite simply, basically the same generic answer that you'd expect from me. But basically, I see it as a lens to understand the gods and as a lens to understand how to practice. Like, for example, when there's a story in the Irish text, which I also apply to Sukelos for logical reasons, but based off of based off a bunch of food either being put in his cauldron or being put in the ground. There's also stories about how no one ever ate from his cauldron without his permission and things like that, which also points to a specific aspect of how to practice when it comes to infernal deities, such as you do not eat the food you offer to them. So I see it in the lens of understanding how to practice. In that respect, you can see that within the myths and within other aspects of the culture left by archaeology. And then I also see it as an understanding their character traits, which I think you enumerated on very well, Ali, but that kind of stuff.
By the way, for those who aren't familiar with Priepos, he is the he's the Greek god of erections, quite literally. Mistress Angelica has declared themselves to be his high priest in Nakasuchi server. It is a running joke talking about him. He is the son of Dionysos. So, it's interesting, though, Cingeto, that you talk about not eating offerings, because in Hellenistic practice, a portion of the offerings are actually consumed by the people after the ritual is over, like the supplicants, whereas a portion is left for the gods.
You do that when it comes to celestial gods, but when it comes to the ones of the earth and in the depths, you do not.
Yeah, you don't do that with the chthonic deities in Hellenist theology. Like, that's a no-no. Same with ancestors. When you do triekas, which is a particular ceremony that's done, it's the Hecatian dinners. Or Treikos is not the Hecatian dinners, but the Hecatian dinners, which are done the day before Numenea, which Numenea is the day that the first sliver of the new moon shows up. The Hecatian dinners is a praise of Hecate, and it's also a rite that specifically deals with leaving an entire plate of food at dinner time out for the ancestors. So, and in that case, you would not touch that food. That would be very disrespectful to the ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
While we're on that subject, by the way, Hellenism has a particular prohibition on the way that you dispose of offerings. I'm curious if any of your guys' paths do as well.
Not really. I mean,
best to put
you
it
don't-
on the ground.
Yeah, according to classical Hellenism, offerings are best burnt or buried, depending. But if you do decide to throw them away in the trash for modern-day revivalist Hellenism, one of the big things that we're told is that you need to wrap it to keep it separate from other trash. What I tend to do is wrap it up in something like a paper towel and then put it into like a plastic bag before I throw it away. Even though that's necessarily all that good for the earth, it's better for keeping it from touching the rest of the trash.
I would.
Mhm.
I don't. This is not. I don't think it's a specific command that I can think of, but I would think that it would probably be most logical to put the offerings back in nature or put them immerse them in water, which is also very common.
Yeah, that's
For,
what I usually do. I usually give it back to nature in some way.
I will either throw it back into. I'll make the offering. I guess it kind of does depend on like whom I'm making the particular offering to. Like if I'm offering it to the land writer, I'm just gonna leave it outside and let the land rights have their way with it.
All right, we have about 20 more minutes left of Q&A for what you guys are, for what it's worth.
And then we ban the entire chat because they've all been naughty.
Especially
Calon, I'm
Cingeto.
gonna mute your butt if you don't continue to make it. If you continue
I'll
making
mute
threats.
you.
You will try. So
I will find a way to succeed.
So Witchy Poo has another question for us. What are y'all's views on the Fae? I'm a medium and have only encountered dead people and animals, but unless monsters or maybe monsters count, I've had no experience with them. So the Fae specifically are Irish Celtic, in my view, unless you count certain like sub-spirits from heathenry. So I can only talk about daemons, which are the helper spirits in Greek mythology, which I have experience with the Agatho daemon and a number of the other daemones in worship. I actually honor them on the first day after the new moon. And I pour a libation to the Agatho daimon fairly regularly because the Agatho daimon is the helper spirit that protects your house. So giving him offerings is generally a good idea.
Sounds reasonable. As for me, I view the Fae. If I'm speaking from a purely heathen perspective, I just view the Fae as a land fighter or as another spirit. If I'm speaking from a Sumerian perspective, demons. I know that sounds so Christian, but demons isn't
And-
exactly. It's not. I don't view demons as evil necessarily. There are some demons that are evil, but not all. From a Sumerian perspective, otherwise, so yeah, they're Celtic spirits.
Via, do you have any experience with them?
I don't really have any personal experience with Fae, but I wouldn't discount them existing, and if they show up in some form, I'm sure as hell going to look into my shit before I accidentally tell them my name or something.
Or take a
Don't do
gift from them?
Oh well, I could go another 7-hour rant on that, but
You have 5 minutes or less, Cingeto.
No, he has 3 minutes now. He's being
Great.
punished. You're on thin ice. You've broken the ice, Cingeto.
Okay, I'm on thin ice.
So apparently Calon is now Mommy Dom.
But basically, okay, the Gaulish term will be endoroi, and then they generally refer to mischievous. They're sometimes good, but they're generally chaotic, evil, and generally during around the springtime, they're usually supposed to specifically be friendly or at least not aggressive towards people. And then once Samhain or Turixio Samanai starts, then they're gonna be a lot. They're pretty much free to do whatever they want. I've had experiences, a good amount, but if you want someone who has had the most experiences, she's in our chat. Rayla has had a lot of experiences with them. Under 3 minutes.
See,
Did you actually time that?
No, I just know that wasn't 3
Bring
minutes.
Cingeto, please. How dare he time? No, we
I can
cannot
do
have
it right.
someone like that. No,
I can do nothing right.
no, you can't, Cingeto. Everything's wrong.
So, we are down to our last, it looks like 15 minutes or so. Does anybody else have any, like, burning questions? Calon, I swear.
That's the most common phrase tonight. Calon, I swear.
Should be on our shirts.
You know, actually, Calon, your mic is going to be merch at some point. Like, this is now required.
No.
I actually have a burning question right now. What?
Oh no.
What did the unvaccinated chicken die from?
Polio?
Chickenpox.
Polio.
I
Oh,
don't
pollo.
know.
Pollo. It's a Spanish joke.
Oh.
Mm.
I had a horrible
Cingeto, you're monolingual. You're about to be banned
polio
now.
is Spanish
I had a
for chicken,
horrible
and
Spanish
it sounds
teacher.
like fucking polio.
I don't care,
And now I
Cingeto.
fucking ruined the joke because I fucking explained it. So you're welcome.
Exactly. Via shouldn't have had to explain the joke to you,
But jokes are always funnier
Cingeto,
when you
can't do
explain
anything
them.
Right, you need to learn Spanish. now.
Okay, you know what? Rilla said that they would buy it, so Cingeto, you now have art to work on.
Wait, what? I have to make Callan's microphone.
You have to make a Calon your mic T-shirt with a proper
Oh.
branding.
All right, let me contact Teespring.
All right. So, what else do we have from this chat?
A lot of people cracking up at our bullshit, mostly.
Well, it's all Cingeto's fault.
Yeah, it's always my fault. I'm just.
It is always your fault. You're the
Uh-huh.
one who.
Channel into the gutter. At least I don't have like
Yep.
a constant what is that? A constant bell noise in my background.
What are some things
Exactly.
that you don't get to talk about very often, dealing with your beliefs that you wish you could?
Actually, how to like worship gods and how to like and actually having respectful dialogue about my traditions.
I mean, we get to
It's a rare
talk to each
thing.
other about that stuff all the time. You
Oh,
and
yeah,
I
we
have
get
talked
to
about
talk, but,
Praxis
like,
tons.
when we talk about but in terms of like talking with atheists, unless it's like Surus or some other
Naka.
atheists like him.
Naka's
Naka.
Naka's actually very, very curious about this stuff. He and I have had long conversations about like the way that Praxis works. We've actually
Yeah,
talked
and
about
his,
his
Native
experiences
American-
with Wankantonka too.
Yeah, in fact, his Native American disposition is actually kind of similar to the Norse disposition, which is rather interesting.
For me,
So yeah, actually having a respectful dialogue with atheists about traditions and whatnot.
For me,
That's a
I
rare-
don't get to talk about my Haida multi-traditionalism all that much, in part because I'm hesitant to do so in a public setting because I'm not an official member of the tribe.
That's
due
our
to
next episode.
Stuff.
That's our next stream. Our next
Calon,
stream is just Aliakai
Calon,
talking about Haida.
Calon, I need your coordinates
Calon,
for
we're gonna
non-missile
fucking
related
get-
reasons.
That is the next stream, guys. That's the next stream. The next stream is just about
No, the
Haida.
next stream is banning Calon from the
Also,
channel.
Tony has reminded
For all the
everybody
mech
that Tony likes talking to us about Praxis too.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
So we have a
Um,
question from Kitsune, but I actually wanted to let Via and Cingeto answer this one first. I just wanted to let
Oh,
Kitsune let me know. I just wanted to let them know
Can we
that
just
I
leave
saw it.
Cingeto out of it?
I'm about to leave you out of it.
I'm just the punching bag.
All right, Callan is quiet. You can talk now. Via, Cingeto, either one of you can jump in.
I was letting Via
Okay,
go
I
first.
don't even know what the question was.
The question
I forgot what
was...
the question was.
Apparently the question is, like, what was the question? No, it is, what are some things that you don't get to talk about very often dealing with your beliefs that you wish you could?
Oh, yeah, I don't really got much because I'm too autistic to not say shit that I want to say. So I just fucking say it anyway, and like if it doesn't go well, oh well.
For what it's worth, like, Via is diagnosed autistic, so she's not using this as an insult for anybody who,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
knows that. Or doesn't know that, rather. Cingeto, your turn.
I wish I could talk about it with some people about how I do it and what I believe, but I mean, if you're referring to real life, I can't do it to many people aside from people I actually made good friendships for beforehand, because a lot of people are just not going to like me for it. So, generally, most of anything I can't really talk about too much in real life in public, especially based on where I live.
I will win this. This is, as a test of wills, you will not win this.
All right, so next question that is from the chat is from Kitsune Cavalier. It is, since the policy of election polls is to keep an apolitical environment, I would like to think that it's a tradition based in Grith. Any thoughts?
Griff?
I can see that.
The thing with Griff, I mean, yeah, I guess I could see that. I could see someone arguing that, because Griff is like a temporary... That's a fair way to put it.
We have a question I think that Calon actually knows enough to answer on. Is there a way to syncretize Hinduism and Buddhism? I'm leaning to Buddhism a little more than Hinduism, but I'm curious if there's a way to blend the two together. You and I talked about this really recently. You mentioned that, like, Buddhism was originally sort of an extension of Hinduism, right?
It is, but there's a lot of, you have to, it can be difficult in some ways, because some of, like, for example, there's the Buddhist principle of anatta, which is self-elimination, which is directly contrary to the idea of Atman, which is basically that you're this self, and this self is like part of the divine. It is part of Atman. But with that said, given the way Hinduism strains to sort of branch off with one another, I am sure that there's already a strand that has done that has mixed Buddhist and Hindu teachings. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can do that with if atheistic Hinduism might share some similarities to that, especially when it comes to
it also depends on the branch of it also depends on the branch of Buddhism, because there are certain types of Buddhism that are theistic or semi-theistic.
That's a tricky and sore spot, actually, I think, for some of the Buddhists. But yes, there are. They actually don't see some of the, from what I've read, they don't see some. While they will pray to the bodhisattvas, which are basically seen as people who have ascended, like, to some sort of next plane and are on their way to nirvana, they don't see them as divine.
Well, I've seen some branches of Buddhism that do see some of those beings as divine.
Yeah. Okay, then yeah, there are some theistic then. Like, I know there's supernatural. Like I said, I'm still learning about this stuff, so take what I say with a grain of salt.
Well, there was a particular Buddhist temple that I used to go to out here for meditation that actually did see the bodhisattvas as divine.
That's a curious American take, because, like, I know.
Well,
like,
the guy was actually from Japan. Like the reverend, he called himself a reverend for, like, English speakers, but there was a different Japanese term that he used when he was talking,
was he Zen?
Yeah, he was Zen.
Okay, then I don't know about Zen Buddhism that much at the moment.
But it was a particular branch of Zen Buddhism.
Yeah. Right now, from what I've mostly been studying, it's Southeastern and, like, Siddhartha's Buddhism, basically.
Hey, Jared Whitaker. We are doing a Q&A session with the chat, so if there's any burning questions you have that you'd like to ask any of us, you are welcome to. We've got another maybe 5 to 10 minutes left, and then we're going to be...
Cingeto.
Only burning questions, though.
Yeah, the most burning kind, like your balls have to be on fire, and you just have to know.
Like you're hotter than Surtur.
Hmm. Let's see. Yeah, at least a temporary truth sort of thing. Okay, religion and spirituality is personal. Is there? Okay, a little more.
Witchy Poo asks, are any of y'all not in the closet about y'all's religion, and what were the consequences of coming out? I am an unabashedly open Hellenic polytheist. All of my friends know. Most of them have seen my ritual room. Out here, we don't have a butt ton of fundamentalist Christians, at least not in my social circle. So the consequences for coming out as a polytheist in my friend circle, like my local friend circle, were absolutely nothing. People were like, "Oh, huh, you're weird. That makes sense." Some people actually became interested, and one or two have actually sat in on my rituals. But in terms of my family, that's an entirely different story. About half of my family doesn't talk to me. Calon, what about you?
Me, oh, I'm unapologetically polytheist. Like, I don't like if you were to see me, you would see a ton of pagan symbols on me. It's what has it led to? It's led to me getting into a lot of fight with Christians and atheists. You can just see that from my Twitter. What else? Oh, and it's led me to several dates. So there you have it.
Well, being unabashedly polytheist online has gotten me a lot of hate from other polytheists because I'm allied with atheists and Christians and atheists who want to start fight with me in servers, but it's not near as much as what Calon gets, at least not yet.
I will tag you into every conversation, Aliakai, and I will make sure it gets to those levels.
Oh God!
I will have you tearing your hair out.
Via, what about you?
Yeah, I am extremely openly pagan, like, anywhere I fucking go. I wore my fucking Mjolnir pendant and a pentacle to family Christmas. And for a while, I just sat there reading the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey, which, like, isn't even pagan, but, like, still, you get the idea. I'm not scared to admit, like, my weird fucking religious stuff.
Cingeto.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you were still talking. It sounded like you'd stopped.
Yeah, I was
take more of Kageto's time, please.
About, like, consequences and stuff. Like, my uncle, at least, definitely wasn't happy about it. But other than that, like, I haven't really had too many consequences for being openly pagan. And my uncle hates me anyway.
So he doesn't matter.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cingeto, what about you?
It depends on the group I'm with, and some of my friend groups I am, but I'm not telling my family yet. I just cannot afford. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm not going to risk anything at this mode of my life. So not yet.
That's why he's not showing his face. By the way, yeah.
Or so you?
I'm not showing my face because I don't want to get trans bashed. To be honest.
I mean, to be fair, Calon and Via both do have reason for that.
True. I'm not showing my face for a bunch of reasons, but that is one of them.
I mean, I don't, apart from a very brief glimpse once of Via, I have not actually seen photos of either of them, but, like, a lot of trans folks don't like showing up on camera because of that.
And it can cause dysphoria if you haven't transitioned.
If people really look really fucking hard, they can find pictures of me in, like, plenty of places. But in general, I don't show my face because I have, like, plans for the future, and I want to have, like, different careers and not necessarily have them all be connected to the YouTube thing.
Well, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but Turtle Cam, once we get that up and running, that's it.
Well,
you won't need another career. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Just Turtle Cam.
So, question from Jared Whitaker. Is there anything you find sacrilegious?
Yeah.
Okay, Calon. More than one word is helpful.
Alright, fine. So, sacrilegious, like, we're not Christians, so we don't like take everything necessarily as sacrilegious on its face, but we do have our
That's
limits.
blasphemy.
Yeah, Cingeto is blasphemy. You're right, Bia. Total blasphemy.
We're in the
Anyhow.
fucking heretic.
But anyhow, like for example, it also can vary a little bit by tradition. Like some of the way that heathens will talk to their gods, to our gods, is a little bit different than the way that Hellenists will talk to their gods. Like trying to remember, like Hellenists have a bunch of different epithets and whatnot that they use depending on various functions and whatnot.
Depending on what you're calling the god for.
Yeah. So, and there are certain ways where sometimes it can seem like to other pagans that a person's being a little pedantic, but that by that tradition standard, it's like, yeah, that's totally not okay. So yeah, it depends.
So as far as, like, Hellenic sacrilege, I would say that desecration of sacred sites, is a big one, especially, like, desecration of, if you were to, say, walk into my altar room and break my statues, that would be sacrilegious. Another one would be eating the offerings or drinking the libation wine before the ritual is done. Or drinking the libation wine pretty much at all if that has been poured into the recipient vessel, because I don't always do my rituals outside. If you were to do that, that would be extremely sacrilegious. That would be very offensive. Let me think. A lot of Hellenists would say that walking into ritual space without first purifying yourself with carnips would be sacrilegious under Hellenist philosophy. At the very least, it causes you to be a bit more disconnected from the gods as far as what you're trying to do with the ritual. So there's that. So those are the things I would say, as far as, like, specifically praxis, I would find sacrilegious. A lot of people like to mock the gods. A lot of people like to mock Zeus in particular. I don't really care if you do it, but don't expect me to join in. And if I do decide to discuss it with you, you know, on a non-mythic literalist point of view, at the very least be a little bit respectful.
Mm-hmm. Same thing mostly with heathenry, really. Just be respectful.
Via.
Really the only thing that I see as sacrilegious is, like, fucking with sacred spaces. Like, even either with, like, my personal altar, if people, like, move shit around on there, or, like, when it comes to, like, greater places of worship, like, out in the world. Like, I got super pissed when the whole Monarchia show went down.
Likewise.
And yeah. And that goes for all religions, including religions that I'm not a part of. Like, I feel like you shouldn't fucking desecrate another person's sacred space. Like, even if they're not part of your religion. And that's
right.
kind
With
of...
the exception of Christians, we raid Christians.
Yeah. That's kind of partially connected to just my own personal morals, and then it's also connected to, like, religion. Like, I have, like, a deep bond with the things that I consider holy, and, like, to think of those being screwed with by someone I don't want screwing with them, that just fucks with me.
Cingeto?
This is going to be controversial when I say this, so brace yourselves. But one thing I've been thinking about, I'm not sure about this yet, but one thing I've been thinking about is whether or not depicting the Gaulish gods in human form is sacrilegious or not. I know people are going to get onto me for that, but I've been thinking about
very Protestant.
That's very Gaulish. If you've read about it,
but also I see it from an animistic perspective, actually.
And, like, symbols are generally better, and at least in my opinion, I know that not everyone holds this opinion, and there's counter evidence, so that's why I'm still thinking about it. But that's one thing I could, because I remember, because in almost everything I've read, almost all the depictions are symbolistic and based off the relevant thing you're asking for or praising them for or something like that. So that's an idea. I'm not sure yet about that. So
I wouldn't call that sacrilegious. Maybe distasteful.
That might be a better term. I'm not sure at the moment.
Going full sacrilegious that's extreme there, admittedly, being serious for a moment.
Well, I mean, that's why I talked about specific violations of, like, ritual etiquette and stuff as being sacrilegious, because according to the structures of those particular practices, doing those things would be considered an affront to the gods. So we have a compliment from the chat. Thank y'all so much for y'all's wonderful help. Y'all have no idea how much y'all's Ocean Keltoy and many atheist channels have impacted my life. Well, thank you very much, Witchy-Boo. It means a lot. Question from Doribi117. Any advice for those still on the fence, spiritually speaking, like they have pagan leanings but are not sure what tradition calls to them?
Watch out for those people called Greeks and Romans. They're a bunch of backstabbers who will
also watch out for the Sumerians too.
Yeah, you should definitely watch out. Okay. You should definitely watch out for those heathen types. I mean, like, at least 2 of their afterlives are entirely based on perpetual war, so you really don't want to end up there.
Yeah, don't touch the heathens.
Watch out for those Greeks. Those Greeks.
The war is fun. Come on.
Okay, just don't go for the Sumerians, the Greeks, the heathens, or the Romans. There you go. It just leaves me.
Cingeto, you're talking.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about Gaulish and Celtic, I mean, at that point, like, you can't really practice it unless you're in that region, because let's face it, all the gods are basically like rivers and stones and other natural formations, so, like, you can't really convert to that religion, can you?
What are you talking? You need to read more. Allie, you need to read more.
Maybe you need to read less and actually practice more. Ooh.
Ooh, shit.
Okay.
Everything that Aliakai says is barbar to me, because we all know that the heathens are the real cultured people here, not those Greeks.
Okay, so completely joking aside, like, let's give some actual serious advice rather than just being butts to each other.
Actual serious advice is that start looking into mythos.
Research is your best friend.
Yeah, basically. That's the best advice I can give.
And find people who do these practices and ask them for sources. Like, we also have sources on the Discord for you to research as well.
One of the big things is looking.
A massive fucking reading list.
One of the big things is looking at the particular mythology sets that seem to speak to you. Like, if you talk a lot about, like, if you were really fascinated with Greek mythology, or Norse mythology, or Celtic, or Egyptian, or Aztec, or whatever, Aztec Reconstructionism would be a mess.
It's actually not that bad as you would think it. In fact, there's still people in Latin America that still pray to chalk, believe it or not, and sacrifice to them. So, yeah.
But if you find a particular mythological set that really appeals to you, that feels like it speaks to your worldview, remind yourself also that you don't have to believe the myths are literal in order to find some form of truth in the stories and to find some form of truth in the deities that are related to that story.
The other thing to also remember is that we're pagans. We don't have to have these huge defined borders between our traditions. Like, I could easily go to Aliakai's place, and so long as she gave me proper instruction and whatnot, I could perform a Greek ritual.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I have no problem inviting somebody with an open mind into ritual space, so long as they're willing to practice. And it would be the same with Calon. Like, if I went to one of her Sumerian rites or Norse rites, so long as I had proper instruction for what etiquette was, I'd be perfectly fine being there.
I just don't want any Greeks in my altar.
Yeah, no, I get that. They're a bunch of barbarians, aren't they?
Barbaroi Logoi specifically refers to the language y'all are speaking right now, and any other that isn't Greek.
It refers to the language that Aliakai is speaking right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that too.
So, coming back to the question of things like research, another big thing that is helpful is if you've ever had any sort of divine experiences or experiences that you believe are divine, talking to other pagans and figuring out both the gods involved and the circumstances, finding ways to help interpret those experiences can lead you towards if a particular set of gods are calling you. And all of the Neoplatonists just started yelling at me in the background. You can't hear them,
God
but
damn
they're
it,
there.
Aliakai! What are you thinking? No!
And I just triggered
No,
every
we are
Neoplatonist.
canceled now.
I just triggered every single Neoplatonist. The gods don't call to you. But no, legitimately, if you've ever felt that way, chances are, trust your intuition at least a little bit on that regard. Your intuition isn't going to tell you everything about your praxis, but it will give you a good idea of where to start looking.
I'll tell you the rest. I'm kidding, but do what Ali said.
Yeah, really? You're gonna betray us like that, Cingeto?
Yep.
Do I need to remind you what her people ended up leading to Rome?
Do I
need to remind you what the Romans did to the Gauls?
Calon, I don't have to agree with everything my ancestors said or did. I mean, and
No,
those
you
are
be
only
quiet,
my
Elliot.
spiritual...
No, we're having this debate right now. I'm kidding.
Those are only my spiritual ancestors, even. Like, my actual ancestors were an oppressed people, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Uh-huh. No, she practices those same practices that led to the destruction of Gaul.
Well, Tony Designs, you see,
Cingeto,
the best
your
way to
name
do that
has
is to the best way to avoid that is to fill your shoes with holy water. That way there's a barrier
That's it.
between you and the floor and nothing can burst into flames.
Yeah, that too.
Alright, so we've actually gone over our time a little bit. I think I'm going to end the stream here if everybody's alright with that, unless anybody has any more questions that are going to set their feet on fire because they don't happen to have any holy water to douse it with.
But no, wait, hold up, I have to say this. Mark Salazar, you are freaking wrong. Cingeto is not the best, he is the worst. You don't know what he does behind the scenes here.
Also, apparently I was an afterthought. Thank you so much.
You are an actor.
I know I'm
Cingeto
new,
is the
but
worst.
gods,
Via, you agree with me on this, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yes,
Wholeheartedly.
The punching
Cingeto
bag.
is the absolute worst of us.
Kingeto's trash.
He
I don't
is.
even know why we still have him on.
Okay, so there's a literal hug box going on in the chat. Alright, so we're actually going to be heading out since we don't have any other major questions, it looks like, in the chat, now that I've given it a long enough delay for everybody to hear me ask them if there's questions. So, we're going to be heading over to the Discord server. For any of you that aren't members of it already, Cingeto, would you mind dropping a link to the Discord really quick in the chat? We're gonna hang out for a little while for an after show. I can't actually be here for as long as I normally would because we have to go grocery shopping today. We've been putting it off for like 2 weeks and just picking up stuff, and the local grocery stores are a lot more expensive than the big box store that we tend to drive a half an hour to go get to actually get like decent cheap groceries from. Calon, I swear. So, I do actually need to be gone by about 5:30 PST, which means you guys have 40 minutes with me, but I'm sure Calon and Via and Cingeto will probably stick around for at least a little bit, and Wolf is known to come and lurk in the chat even though he's in a bit of pain. So, if y'all have any more questions for us, or if you just want to kind of hang and shoot the shit and hear us snipe at each other, we're going to be heading over to the Discord. Thank you so much for joining us. As yet another reminder, we're going to be working on getting a lot more scripted content out fairly soon. I've got my series on Hellenism. Cingeto's working on some stuff on Gaulish theology. Calon is working on a series on heathenry as well. And we've got some guests that are coming down the pipeline. We've also got a big collab coming up, but I can't announce who it is with yet because we haven't set the date.
It's with Jesus Christ
Y'all
himself.
haven't even told me who it's with yet.
Via, you already know about it a little
Jesus.
bit.
Wait, I do?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I can't say anything more or I'll end up spoiling what it is, but I have talked to you about it.
Okay.
There were certain thingits that were based entirely on this collab, so you're aware of who it is and what it is.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Okay.
So, for my very, very long goodbye, I will meet you guys all at the PolyOlogy Discord server, and thank you again for joining us, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.